Immigration and Customs Enforcement is breaking the law across the country, and we all need to be paying attention. Hi, I'm Jim Hacking, immigration lawyer practicing law throughout the United States, out of our offices in St. Louis, San Diego, Washington, D.C., and Chicago, Illinois. The Department of Homeland Security, DHS, and Immigration Customs Enforcement, ICE, have been conducting raids in major cities across the country, and they are violating U.S. citizens' civil rights, and they are trampling on the Constitution. This is not hyperbole. This is not exaggeration. The things that they are doing are illegal. Donald Trump, Stephen Miller, and Thomas Homan have declared war on these cities in blue states where they claim that they are trying to track down immigrants who are violent offenders and criminals, and to kick them outside of the United States. What we're seeing right now is not law enforcement. It's not enforcing the laws. In fact, it's them not following the laws. They are the ones who are violating the laws every single day. They want to call immigrants illegals. The actions that they are taking on a daily basis in cities like Memphis, Chicago, Los Angeles are in fact illegal. A feckless Republican Congress will do nothing to stop immigration customs enforcement, so it's very important that you pay attention and you vote in the upcoming midterm elections so that Democrats will have the ability to haul these people into Congress and make them testify under oath about the illegal things that they're doing. In the one big beautiful bill, aka the bill from hell, the Congress gave tons and tons of money, a record number of resources to Immigration Customs Enforcement to allow them to hire immigration agents and officers who are unqualified, who have not been properly vetted, who have not been properly trained, and they're out there in little Kia Sonatas trying to arrest immigrants and drag them into cars and vans with masks on, without identifying themselves, without warrants, and the Supreme Court has given them the green light to do so. It's an appalling situation, and it's all to reach that goal that Stephen Miller and Thomas Homan set of 3,000 deportations a day. When ICE is given a quota to perform, they're going to try everything they can to do it, and if that means breaking the law, so be it. This has nothing to do about public safety. In fact, ICE's presence and DHS's presence in these cities is in itself causing the conflict. It's causing the fighting. It's causing the mass chaos, and that is what they want. They want Americans to be scared, and Donald Trump is building a police force that is loyal to him and not loyal to the Constitution and the laws of our country. The Trump administration is involved in massive immigration deportation enforcement, and they're stretching the resources of the immigration courts to the max. They are filling the beds of their buddies who own for-profit prisons, and everyone is making money. Immigration Customs Enforcement is now working hand in hand with the FBI and other government agencies to conduct these raids and to abuse citizens and non-citizens alike. As part of Project 2025 and Donald Trump's plan for the Department of Homeland Security, they want immigration to be a strictly enforcement agency. They're not so concerned with people getting citizenship or green cards. What they want to do is find immigrants to deport, to bring in those resources to the removal context, and to get the deportation machine up and running faster and faster. Now, they'll say this is about catching violent offenders, but the numbers show that this is far from the case. The vast majority of people that are being picked up by ICE in order to meet their daily and weekly quotas are not criminals. When you have to satisfy these people up in Washington, D.C., that you're properly arresting enough people every single day, you don't care if they're violent offenders or not. You don't care how severe their immigration violations are. You simply want to hit the numbers to make your masters happy. DHS's own numbers firmly establish that the vast majority of people that are being detained now by ICE are not criminals. They are asylum seekers. They are mothers. They are grandmothers. They are children. ICE is doing everything in its power to grab as many immigrants as possible. And Brett Kavanaugh and the U.S. Supreme Court says, if you're grabbing people because they have brown skin, that's okay. If you're grabbing day laborers, that's okay. You can racially profile. We don't care. Damn the Constitution. Damn probable cause. We just don't care. Get these people out of the country. Everything, and I mean everything, is built around this idea that they have to meet their daily quota. Let's begin our analysis by turning to Los Angeles, where entire neighborhoods are under siege from these ICE thugs. ICE raids have swept through apartment complexes, bus stops, work areas, even Home Depots. Agents are relying on what are called administrative warrants, which mean they're warrants that are not issued by a federal judge, but rather by ICE officers themselves, and they're acting as if this gives them leeway and permission to do whatever they want, including entering private residences, which is untrue and illegal. Local leaders in Los Angeles are outraged, and they have made clear what it is: a military-style occupation targeting immigrants. You may recall that meeting that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth had a few weeks ago with the generals, where they said that the U.S. military should start practicing on preparing for readiness for war by testing it out on U.S. cities around the country. This is ridiculous. Donald Trump has declared war on the cities in the United States that didn't vote for him. And what are we seeing in Los Angeles? Children watching their parents getting dragged away into unmarked vans. Small businesses and restaurants having to close out of fear or because they don't have anybody to work there. We have skyrocketing food prices because there aren't enough people to pick the strawberries and to pick the bananas. And because of that, costs are through the roof. Does Donald Trump care? No, he's a millionaire. He and his rich buddies, they could care less what you're paying for bananas or strawberries or any other farm items that people would be picking, but for these raids. You can't believe anything that ICE says when it comes to these raids. Kristi Noem is a known liar. She tells big, tall tales all the time. The Department of Homeland Security and ICE are engaged in a propaganda war trying to get people excited about chasing these immigrants in the dark, running them down, and throwing them in jail. This is what mass deportations look like in 2025. This is what Donald Trump's voters voted for. This is what Project 2025 promised. Now let's talk about Chicago. Chicago is a city in a state that's governed by Governor Pritzker, who is a noted foe of Donald Trump. Donald Trump and Thomas Homan have made clear that they want to make Chicago an example of what federal power can do in a big city like Chicago. Now let's all remember, Chicago is a wonderful city. It's a beautiful city. Many people live there. It's a huge population. It's a wonderful place. And if you watch Fox News and if you listen to Donald Trump and Thomas Homan, it's a hellhole war zone. It's only a war zone and a hellhole because ICE has shown up. They dropped down in the middle of the night out of Black Hawk helicopters into a residential neighborhood onto an apartment complex in the middle of the night. They didn't have warrants, flashbanged, grenaded their way into these apartments. They blew open the doors while people were sleeping. They dragged mothers and children, old men, old ladies out into the street in their underwear. This included U.S. citizens. This included little children. They hogtied them with ties, and they wouldn't give them any access to an attorney or a telephone call, or to be even explained to why this was happening to them. This is what ICE is doing. This is what your tax dollars are doing. This is what the Republican Party has voted for. They are specifically targeting people with pending applications. Remember, they have to find 3,000 people every day to put into the deportation machine. What better place to do that than at USCIS? So USCIS and ICE are working hand in hand to find immigrants, to keep Donald Trump happy, to feed the deportation machine, to make that xenophobe Stephen Miller happy. The Constitution, the supreme law of the land, makes clear that you have to have probable cause in order to conduct a search, in order to conduct a raid. ICE is making a travesty of the Constitution every single day. They're trampling on it. They're violating your rights, they're violating my rights, and they're violating the rights of people in the United States, whether they're legal or not. They still have rights, and ICE is trampling on them. And so far, the Supreme Court has been willing to allow them to do so. In Memphis, the Department of Homeland Security highlights the SAFE task force as an example of what the feds can do when they come into a town that they view as lawless, even though there's no factual basis for same. If you look at the SAFE task force, you can see in Memphis that they do it under the name of ICE, they do it under the name of Homeland Security, but really they're just using it as a way to trample on people's rights. Governor Bill Lee bragged about 850 arrests and 175 guns being seized in Memphis, all under the name of immigration enforcement. Again, you can't believe anything that these people say. And what he didn't say is that these local law enforcement agents are transferring immigrants out of jail into immigration enforcement, even without them ever having seen a judge or having the charges lodged against them. When asked about regular families, U.S. citizens who are afraid to leave their homes, here's what Bill Lee, the governor of Tennessee, said. If they're not a criminal element, they shouldn't be afraid. That's a red herring. That's a logical fallacy. And it doesn't take into account the fact that the Constitution protects all of us from this behavior. It protects all of us from living in a police state. Governor Lee and the mayor of Memphis have made clear that these law enforcement operations in Memphis will be there on the ground for years to come. And they're applauding their own behavior. They're saying that they're saving the city, but in fact, what they're doing is trampling on people's rights. And they're merging local law enforcement with immigration customs enforcement. And the thing is, once they build this army of ICE agents, they're going to eventually use that on cities around the country, and they're going to use it on people that don't like Donald Trump or don't like the Republican Party. They are not planning on leaving office. They're not planning on going quietly. They are planning on building up a state of emergency so that they can stay in power forever. That's what they really want. And yesterday, ProPublica published a report that made clear that over the past few months, ICE and Border Patrol have detained over 170 U.S. citizens for prolonged periods, a day or two or even longer, without giving them access to prove that they're a citizen, without believing that they could possibly be a U.S. citizen, without giving them the chance to show their documentation. And they're detaining U.S. citizens. They did it in Chicago. They're doing it in Memphis. They definitely did it in Los Angeles. And this is all coming to a town near you. These are U.S. citizens detained by their own government. If they can do 170 people in a couple of months and nobody cares, nobody makes a stink, and the Republican Party and Speaker Johnson just let this behavior continue, they're never going to stop. The more power they get, the more power they're going to want. It's important to remember that at the very beginning of the Trump administration, they got rid of the ombudsman. They got rid of the oversight over agencies like ICE and Homeland Security because they don't want to track numbers. They don't want to keep track of this. It's going to take lawyers and litigation to challenge this behavior. But if you have a Supreme Court that lets Donald Trump do whatever he wants, you really have to ask yourself, where are things headed? What's going to happen? Where does this end? When immigration enforcement can detain its own citizens, we've crossed over from a democracy to authoritarianism. So if we take a step back and look at the overall picture and we see what's happening in these cities and these promises from Trump that we're going to see it in other cities as well, we really begin to understand what's happening. Donald Trump is building a domestic army. He's staffing it with people that stormed the Capitol on January 6th. He's loading it up with people who are loyal to him and not loyal to the Constitution, who could care less about the rights of brown people or white people or black people. If you don't like Donald Trump, if you don't like GOP, you are the enemy and we're going to lock you up. They now have access to tax records, DMV records, school records, and they're going to use that data to find the people that they will declare enemies of the state. They're wearing masks while they do this. They're using drones. They're using facial recognition software. They're keeping track of you and me and everybody else while they build this police state under all of our eyes. They're taking what they were doing at the border and they're spreading it out to American cities. It's important to remember that Congress never voted for this. There hasn't been any change in legislation. Donald Trump is taking the existing laws as they exist and twisting them to serve his purposes and to make Stephen Miller happy. Donald Trump's losing his mind. He's becoming a doddering old fool. Through executive orders and budget tricks, the Department of Homeland Security has created a nationwide deportation machine. And that machine is running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all to hit that goal of 3,000 deportations per day. What we're witnessing is not immigration enforcement. It's about control. It's about power. It's about mass punishment. Don't vote for Donald Trump, your city gets the buzz. Sadly, they wrap themselves in the flag and they claim they're enforcing the laws, but in reality, they're violating the Constitution every single day. If we want our country to truly be governed by the law and for everyone to follow the law, we need to start enforcing the law and slapping down these agencies that are doing these terrible things every single day. It's appalling, it's scary, and I find it very, very upsetting. I'm worried about where we're headed. I'm worried about what's going to happen with our upcoming elections. I think the Republican Party is going to do everything they can to keep Donald Trump's promise, which was, if you voted for me in 2024, you're never going to have to vote again. They think they can stay in power forever. They're making motions to let Donald Trump serve a third term. They think they can keep this going forever, that the American people are going to put up with it, and that only happens if you do. If you stop paying attention, if you allow them to distract you and to make you mad at your fellow U.S. citizens and neighbors and residents, that's what they're after. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Our firm is going to continue fighting for immigrants. It's what we do every single day. We have trademarked that line. We fight for immigrants every day, and that is what we do at Hacking Immigration Law. If you'd like our help fighting with deportation or fighting with immigration or fighting to get you an immigration benefit, give us a call at 314-961-8200. You can email us info@hackingimmigrationlaw.com. If you want to get a hold of us for free information, we have a ton of it. You can join our Facebook group, Immigrant Home. We'd love to have you there. There's about 16,000 people in there talking about the immigration process every day. We have our TikTok channel at Immigration Hacking, where I post a few times a day. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, which will allow you to get alerted whenever we post a new video. And if you turn on your alarm, you'll see when I go live. And we thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.